Hello, and welcome to the Limited Liability Partnership Group. We are Blake, Kevin, and Luke.
Hi, it's Luke here with the LLP group for the Business Law Project. So I'm going to start off by talking about some of the strengths and weaknesses for LLPs. First, I'll hit on the strengths. For the first one, it helps protect the LLP members' personal assets from the liabilities of a business. The second one is it's flexible. This means the way the LLP is operated and how profits are distributed is determined by the partnership agreement. An LLP is considered to be its own legal entity. So this means it can do a lot of things that individuals can do, such as buy things, rent stuff, lease things, own land, property, buildings, have employees, have its own contracts, and ultimately it can be held accountable when necessary. Another strength would be that two companies can be listed as partners in an LLP, so it doesn't just have to be two individuals, it can be other forms. An LLP can have different levels of partnership, so you can have designated or non-designated partners, which is nice and flexible. Now on to the weaknesses. We have public disclosure. That means like all the financial accounts have to be submitted and be used for public record. Another weakness would be you have to have at least two members. You can't just form a LLP on your own. Obviously, within a partnership, there must be two people. Another big weakness is tax filing is really complex, and which makes some states not even allow them. So that's a weakness on its own. And another big weakness would be individual partners don't have to consult one another when they are conducting certain activities. So an individual within the LLP can make decisions without consent of the other partners. In some states, an LLP is limited to certain professions or individuals, so you might not even be able to form one, even if you wanted to, depending on what you're doing. Also, it does not protect against internal negligence. So if you are acting negligent within the LLP, you can still be held liable for that.
So, as Luke said, we chose an accounting firm as our business for our limited liability partnership. This is because some states do not permit accountants to form LLCs, but an LLP can be formed with the same benefits, such as the status of a tax flow through entity, and liability only for a partner's own negligence or misconduct. Partners wouldn't be liable for the entity's debt or for another partner's actions. This is why an LLP is favored over a general partnership, because in a general partnership, partners are liable for the debts of the entity and other partners. So for instance, if I acted negligently with a client and had a lawsuit filed against me, Blake and Luke wouldn't be liable for my actions, unlike in a general partnership, where they would be liable as well.
Next, we're going to be talking about the checklist that is needed to form an LLP in the state of South Dakota. So first, you need to fill out a statement of qualification. This usually comes from the Secretary of State's office. Next, once you do that, you have to create or draft a partnership agreement. And this is where all the partners sit down and you actually decide what is going to be your agreement. Then you need to apply for an EIN, your employer identification number. This is basically like a social security number except for your for your entity. Excuse me. Then, since we're an accounting firm, we need to apply for a Board of Accountancy license. And this just comes from the state of South Dakota. There's a board in South Dakota. You apply to it, and they either grant or deny you. And then finally, we need to fill out a sales tax application. Many people ask why we would need to do this, but it's just a required thing. There's only a couple of exceptions in South Dakota, and I believe it's agriculture and law firms. Now we're going to be moving on to the actual forms that we need to fill out. So we're going to start with the statement of qualification for domestic limited liability partnership. So this means we're going to be operating within South Dakota. It's domestic. So our name, Golden Aspen LLP. Our address, 2002 South Summit Avenue. the registering agent, that's the person who's filling out the form, and then a couple um, of the partners need to sign off.
A partnership agreement should be created. Within this partnership agreement, it should also state who the partners are and their roles. This partnership agreement acts much like an outline for an LLP. I'll go through the most important parts of our agreement. First, we have the members of the LLP at the top of the first page, which obviously includes the three of us. Next is our name, Golden Aspen LLP, and our business, which would be an accounting firm. After that, we have how much each partner is going to contribute into the LLP through cash and non-cash assets. Each partner must contribute $1 million in cash and $2 million in non-cash assets in our LLP, making an extremely wealthy accounting LLP for no apparent reason. After that, we have how much each partner receives profits and losses. We decided that 50% would go into Golden Aspen and the other 50% would be split evenly at 16.6% to each of the remaining partners. Next, we have how our LLP will record under GAAP and what our fiscal year would be. For management of the LLP, we agreed that each partner would have equal rights in managing the LLP. The dissolution of a partner must be addressed in a partnership agreement, and just like in ours, a unanimous consent for dissolution is pretty typical. The proceeds from liquidation would first go to any debts the LLP has outstanding, and then income and capital would be distributed to the partners equally. Any withdrawal from a partner would make the partnership be terminated. However, a partner can retire from our partnership, provided that they at least give a 14 days written notice. The remaining partners would then have to decide whether they would liquidate and terminate the partnership, or if they would just buy out the other partner to continue the partnership. Involuntary retirement, aka death of a partner, would still result in the same, similar to retirement, with the remaining partners deciding whether to dissolve or liquidate the partnership, or purchase the remaining interest that they had. The intention to purchase their portion of the partnership would have to be done in 30 days after the partner's death. For a new partner to join, a unanimous decision must be made to admit the new partner. And for any amendments made to the agreement, any amendment must be a written agreement and signed by all the partners. Last but not least, the agreement should be signed by every partner in the partnership.
The employer identification number. So one thing that I think it's important to cover is, why does an LLP need an employer identification number? So since an LLP is technically a separate legal entity from its individual partners, you must obtain a federal EIN. So how does someone do this? Well, you simply just go to the IRS website and complete a simple form. Then the form asks you some pretty simple information, such as the LLP's legal name, the location, what business activity you are in. So in our case, we were an accounting firm, so we filled out that. The reason you're applying. So the reason we were applying is we were starting a new business. And some questions that were in there that I thought were interesting were, it actually asked if we owned a vehicle that was like 55,000 pounds or more, if our business was involved in gambling, and if we sold alcohol or cigarettes. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Next, we are going to be discussing the South Dakota Board of Public Accountancy form. This is just basically a form that allows you to practice accounting in South Dakota. You just fill out basically your firm's name, the address of your firm, your phone numbers, emails, things like that. Pretty basic stuff. It asks you what type of entity you are, what your designated use is. So we chose that all of our people are going to be certified public accountants. And then are all the owners active firm or active certificate holders? No, there's 3 of us as owners. And yeah, so just going down throughout the form, it's fairly simple. And then the ninth question on here, pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 3620B35, um, each holder of the application, each holder or applicant for the permit under this chapter shall notify the board in writing within 30 days after its occurrence. So basically, it asks you a bunch of questions like, has the firm ever had an applicant before? No. Has the firm been investigated, charged, or disciplined? No. And has the firm been party to any evil suit, bankruptcy action, administrative proceeding, or binding arbitration? No. Finally, we have our sales tax application, which is one of the more complicated and longer forms that you need to fill out. So just starting out, obviously you need to apply for business license, your tax license. We're a limited liability partnership. That's the ownership type, sales tax. Golden Acres LLP. Our EIN is still in process. We're just waiting. Our address there. Contact. Do you want tax correspondence? No. And then you just fill out the general partners and the limited partners. So our limited partners, obviously me, Kevin, and Luke, and then our general partner is going to be Golden Acres LLC. The reason we did that was the general partner carries the highest amount of liability. And so we figured if we used an LLC, it would help keep some of the liability off of the limited partners. And then going through, there's a bunch of questions. What date did our business begin? Is it located on Indian country? No. Our accounting method will be accrual. It's going to be open all year. We're doing accounting services, which is under code 8721. Excuse me. We're not going to be selling cigarettes or tobacco. We're not going to be selling prepaid wireless airtime or telecommunication services. And then you have to select a representative of the partnership who will be receiving the tax filing information. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have a great rest of your school year.